Hi, I'm Dave. This is another video in my series where I'm looking at the subtle aspects of being human. This time we're going to look at it from the point of view of the Magician tarot card, which is the second tarot card. And we want to get to that simple concept behind this card, which is when we do things, we get experiences doing those, which frames our understanding of what it is all about. So it builds our own individual truths. So to look at it, take the card. This particular card is, it's the idea of making a choice. It is the card that shows we're moving forward. If you look at the previous card was the Fool. The previous card was all about the subconscious. It was all about not putting your awareness on anything. It's just going through life and you experience life, but you have no awareness of it, no conscious understanding of it. The Magician card comes along and says, look, if you want to get a better understanding of what your life is all about, you need to make a choice. You need to look at the infinite possibilities associated with what you could do in any situation. Here it is when you do make a choice. That choice involves something that happens in the mind space. You consciously make a choice, you think about it a little bit, and then you go to explore that. Thus, the Magician card has all four elements that lay out on that table. Everything's out before us. We can go look at life however we want to look at life. And so it's the act of doing it. But why? Why do we want to do that? The idea is when you make a choice and you go do something, you get an experience of what you just did. You get to research that and feel it. You get to sense it. You get to explore all the attributes of it so that you, without a shadow of a doubt, know what it is that you're exploring. So from the previous video, the concept was you smell something. Well, this card would say, what is it that you want to do with regards to what you just smelt? Do you want to just ignore it and let it never build an experience off of it? Just, oh, hey, sometimes the world smells this way. Or else you may say, what is that? What did I just smell? And then you explore what it is that you just smelt. Sometimes, well, when you do, you made a choice. And in the act of making that choice, you now have driven your spirit, your being, into the path of exploring and learning what it is. If you're successful on your path, you will in some way or another develop an understanding of what it is that you just smelt. So in the case of the previous video, you would smell the rose, you would understand, you basically say, what is it about that? And you would change your behavior in some way to go explore that. So then you look around, you feel around, you go explore, you follow your sense of smell to see what is it that's smelling this way. And then you make an association between the rose and the smell. Later on in life, you might come across something that's similar to that, your subconscious. So when you got the experience of it, it becomes part of the mind space that you are tapped into. It's your subtle understandings. It is your experience. You smelt the rose. You now understand what that smell came from. And then later on in life, you might smell it again. And instantly, you will know what it is that smell came from. So the idea here is that when throughout life, there's an infinite number of possibilities of things that you can go explore. And the Magician card is showing us that we can go do that. Now, the thing that I want to make sure you understand is that this is there so that we can build our own understanding of life around us. So it would be kind of like you want to look at this and say, well, when I smelt this, if thinking about the rose again, so when I smell it, did you pick up a textbook and say, oh, hey, that smell, if you smell something that smells like this, then it's probably this. Well, the textbook isn't in the same realm of perception. So if you picked up a textbook of smells and you smelt things, the textbook might be able to make an association for you to help you find what it is that you're smelling. So in other words, if you smell something in an environment and you can't trace it down, but you can sometime later come across and smell something that smells similar, then you may be able to look at that textbook and say, oh, this is a scratch and sniff, and says, this is something that smelled like what I remember smelling before. And the textbook is now telling me, oh, that's dog poo for what you just smelt before. Okay, but what's interesting about this scratch and sniff experience is that it was a compilation of what somebody else had interpreted, and they attached words to it. Whereas when you smell something in your own experience, without going to what somebody else might share with you, and you go and look in your environment, where's the smell coming from? What does it look like? Oh, it's a flower. I don't know what kind of flower that is, but I can make that association with the smell. Later on, you might learn that that's a rose. But here it is that we just made that association to what it is that did not have a name that we had an association with, we had an experience with. That gets tucked into your consciousness so that you can tap into that later. But there's a difference between being told what it is versus what you experience. So the musician card doesn't come along and say, oh, look, your life is going to be a sequence of being told stuff. And when you get told stuff, then you're going to believe what it is that you were told, and your life will then be enriched by this sequence of belief systems that you just experienced. No, the musician is based off of your own personal experience, not somebody else's. There's not somebody telling you what it's like to do something in the physical plane, or telling you what it's like to do in the emotional area, or telling you what your thoughts need to be and how they need to be structured. Nope, you experience them on your own. And this is important to understand, because basically your own experiences are undeniable. What you did, you will forever remember and forever have an association with. Somebody else may come along later and want to discuss their experience with you, okay, which is also interesting, because that takes us into another aspect of this manifestation process, which is kind of interesting, because if you look at the date of this video, you'll see that it's June 6, 2020. And one of the things I wanted to get to in this series is that not only do we have personal experiences of manifestation, but we have collective manifestations of experiences. And so there's always going to be, or it may be that you want to share your experience with somebody else. And in order to share your experience about the rose, there's certain things that you have to do in order to validate that your experience, what you're talking about, matches what somebody else is talking about. Okay, to be able to come up with a common understanding of what that smelling of a rose smell is. Now, this can happen in real life when two people or more people walk down the same path, smell the same smell, both investigate together what it is, and you both forever have that understanding together, and you create a community understanding of what it is that you just smelt. When two people walk down two separate paths and smell two different things, yet come together to try to share that experience, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Because now, in order to share that experience, we have to be able to communicate in a way that we can both understand what we're talking about. So, in the aspect of trying to get a deeper, richer experience in life, not only do we have to make a choice about what it is that we're smelling and what we want to go investigate, but we need to be able to investigate that with enough detail so that when we go to converse with somebody about our experience, there's the details there that we can use to anchor the conversation between those two people. If I want to share to you my experience of smelling a rose, you need to be able to understand that it's the same type of flower that you smelt on your journey, so that we can both converse about the same thing. if it turns out that we're not talking about that you go smell something that was white and I smelled something that was red, was it the same thing? We need to be able to pay attention to the details in order to be able to get to a common ground so that we kind of know we're talking about the same thing. Does that make sense? I hope it does. The whole point of this is that in our lifetimes, we as individuals we're going to make a choice. We're going to look at something in our environment and we're going to go follow it. We're going to go follow it to figure out what it is so that we can build our conscious understanding of something that was in our subconscious realm of influence. So when we do go down that path, it's important to pay attention to the details. When you pay attention to the details and you get, in this case, the rose, you notice the color, you notice the time of year, you notice where you were at, you notice the shape of the flower, you notice the shape of the leaf, you notice other things, you notice the thorns, you notice that it's a bramble rather than a bush. There's different subtle things that you want to pay attention to that enrich your experience so that you can communicate better with that other person when you want to find a mutual experience. Now, one way that you can do that is you can simply pick the rose and they can smell it and you can talk about it. But think about that for a second. When you do that, the other person's experience is different. You might have picked the flower with no leaves. So they don't have the experience of the bush. They don't have the experience of the leaves, but they do have the experience of the smell. That other person's experience might be different. If you went and bought yourself a bottle of rose scented perfume and you open up that perfume and they smell that perfume, it is the captured essence of the rose. But that other person, in their experience, they intersected with you, you shared with them the bottle of essence of rose. They smell it. And now, even though it was virtually indistinguishable between that smell that you smelled with the flower, when they smell it, they have no association with the flower. It's now associated with a bottle, and that bottle has a particular shape. The bottle has maybe a teardrop-shaped lid and a rubber stopper. It could have been a pink-shaped glass. They have an association with the essence in how you presented it to them. Now, when we talk about the essence of rose, if these two people come together and they were exposed to the essence of rose from two different angles, they have two different perspectives on where that essence comes from. They both know it as essence of rose. One saw it on the bush, the other saw it from a jar. It leads to the aspect of millions of different possibilities at getting to things that are similar, at least being named similar, but they're different experiences. Okay? And so for us to be able to have a conversation about the essence of rose, how is your sense of the essence of rose shaped versus how is my interpretation of the essence of rose shaped? It's to enrich the conversation about the subtle details, it's worth paying attention to those subtle details because everybody's going to have a slightly different perspective on the essence of rose. So back to the musician, basically we're going to have to make choices. In order for us to experience life, we have to make choices. We have to go do something. We have to show the desire to go do it. Yet when we do, we're all going to approach how we solve that problem or how we get our understanding, which will be slightly differently. Yet, in general senses, we will categorize those, because we're humans, we'll categorize those into things that we know, and we'll categorize those into ways that we can communicate with others. And so, a lot of times, those categories become very general. They don't have the same essence of fine details. We might talk about the essence of rose, but if I can't take you to the actual sense of it, then that conversation is going to be a little hollow. Anyway, remember this because there's going to be other aspects that come along with the other cards and with the other aspects of the subtle aspects of being human, and how, if you pay attention to them, or if you desire to investigate them more, the more that you look into it, the easier it's going to be to converse with others about it. Anyway, we'll move on to the other cards, and we'll keep this in mind because we may come back to this in the near future. Before you go, like and comment so other people can find this content too. If you think you might be coming back, feel free to subscribe. I don't put out a lot of content, and you'll be able to easily find my channel again. Also, don't forget about the website. It is a tool for you. Registering and logging in is free, and it gets you all the information about all of my cards. Or if you're feeling courageous, maybe even purchase a tarot card reading. When I do readings, I basically will have you on the phone, record you, and we'll go through this process. It usually lasts about an hour, and we'll get into subconscious answers for your questions. Another way of helping me out is to share one of my videos on your social media. Any way that you can get my information out so that it can help more people, because the information is already there. Another way you can support me is to buy my children's book, A Loving Saint, Sai Baba. I was the illustrator. I work with Arthi as the author on this book. You can find it on Amazon. And thank you for the support. May these videos find you happy and healthy.